Spring has officially sprung, and so I'm about to be outside a lot more, and having a camera that I can take everywhere is going to be key. I love my full-frame camera and professional lenses, but they're often large and awkward to carry around. When I want to shoot without having to think about every detail, I look for a camera that is small and easy to use, because sometimes it's just nice to be able to point and click. The ZV-1 Mark II, the latest in Sony's line of vlogging cameras, aims to do just that, but it still allows you to get a bit more into the mindset of a photographer or videographer if you want to. The ZV-1 Mark II is being marketed as a vlogging camera, and it is, but it's also for those used to the cell phone video and photo taking experience who want to dip their toes into the bigger, better world of cameras. That's something said about a lot of entry-level cameras, but what are you actually getting? Why shell out the cash for a new camera instead of continuing to use your phone? Well, for a start, you'll never get interrupted by a call or text while using the ZV-1 Mark II, but more so you get things like an internal 1/8 stop ND filter, the same fast hybrid AF system as seen in Sony's Alpha series cameras, a 1-inch sensor with a fast lens that has optical zoom, intelligent audio features, removable memory cards which are way more affordable than upgrading phone's internal memory. Oh, and it will never ever fake your photos of the moon. Anyways, the ZV-1 Mark II is largely the same as the ZV-1, so I'm only going to be talking about my favorite features and things about the camera that stood out to me. So if you want to see detailed specs, check the link in the description. Alright, though it's not new to the ZV-1 Mark II, to me it's the coolest feature of this camera, and I want to see it implemented into every camera from Sony going forward. It's a feature that you usually only find built into professional video and cinema cameras, and that would be the internal ND filter. Now, it may not be a variable ND, but since you can't use an external ND with this camera, it's a great feature that they included, as not having it would fundamentally change the entire experience of shooting with this camera for the worse. Of course, the 1/8 ND isn't that strong, but it does come in very handy. Instead of having to stop down or crank the shutter speed, I can keep a shallow depth of field that we can get from the camera's max aperture of 1.8. Moving on, the ZV-1 Mark II's bokeh button makes it so that you don't need to know what shallow depth of field is to get one. With one press, the camera will blur the background of your video. And this is cool, but I found that the camera likes to go to its fastest aperture at most times anyway if you're in auto, so I didn't really notice the difference during my time with the camera. So it's kind of a hit or miss feature. If I owned this camera, I'd probably set this button to something more useful. Being a camera that can shoot wide open at f1.8, the autofocus is going to have to be spot on. And considering you may not always be looking at what you're shooting when you talk to the camera, you need to be able to trust that the shot is going to be consistently in focus. For example, the ZV-1 Mark II has a product showcase mode for those all-important close-up shots. This has become a standard feature in creator or vlogging cameras, and it does work well. When this camera is looking at a person, its focus is absolutely rock solid. Whether it's your face or your eyes, its tracking is always going to be sharp. Or at least almost always. The ZV-1 Mark II has the same fast hybrid autofocus tech used in the Alpha series cameras. And what is fast hybrid AF? Well, it's a combo of phase and contrast detection autofocus. And having both phase and contrast detection autofocus is helpful, as they are for slightly different purposes. Contrast detection is slower, but it produces sharper images, while phase detection is faster to focus. To my knowledge, fast hybrid autofocus uses phase detection to snap the photo into focus quickly, and then refine focus with contrast AF. You get the best of both worlds, and who doesn't like a 2-for-1 special? In combination with great autofocus, you're gonna actually need to fit everyone in the shot. The ZV-1 Mark II has a new lens from Zeiss that allow you to do just that. Instead of the ZV-1's focal length of an equivalent 24 to 70 millimeters, we now have the wider range of 18 to 50 millimeters at f1.8 to 4. The ZV-1 Mark II can recognize when more than one person is in the shot and adjust to keep everyone in focus with the multiple face recognition feature. You gotta love a wide-angle lens. The Zeiss Vario Sonar T is built into the camera body. Usually this wouldn't be an upside for me, but considering how low profile the camera is when turned off, it's hard to complain. Oh, also, it does take some pretty good images. Stills can be shot up to 20.1 megapixels in JPEG and RAW formats, while you can shoot up to 120p in 1080 and up to 30p in 4K. Unfortunately though, there is no Acinotone color profile, and the ZV-1 Mark II is an 8-bit camera. This is a real letdown, as having 10-bit color retains so much more color info and can often save a shot that was exposed incorrectly. There is a shortcut to having a more cinematic look to your video though. That shortcut is the cinematic vlog setting. Tapping this setting on the screen will snap you into 24 frames per second and change the frame size to an aspect ratio of 2.35 to 1. Ooh, very Hollywood. Choose from 1 of 5 looks and 1 of 4 moods to automatically, and I use this term lightly here, grade your footage. Now, looking good is only half the battle when it comes to video. If you can't be heard, what's the point? The ZV-1 II has a few interesting ways that you can go about audio capture. The 3-point mic system on top of the camera allows you to capture sound from all angles, or you can switch mics to get a more directional sound. All this can be done from the touchscreen before and during recording. And here's an example of what that sounds like. Alright, so this is going to be a bit of a test of both my writing ability and the image stabilization and audio stuff in this camera. Oh, I'm in shutter priority. Yeah, this is interesting. Well, how does the stabilization look? Because I'm just holding this with my hand, so no optical stabilization, but there is steady shot, so that should be interesting. Here, we can flip this around and see what we're working with. Alright, and now back to me. How is the autofocus on that? This is probably the worst situation for the mics right now. We are currently on the omnidirectional mode, so we should be hearing sound from everywhere. Now, let's just change that to see if it looks sounds any better. Now we've got the front, so does it sound any better on the front? Under the tunnel we go. This boy's a groove. Ah, they've shut it all down. Oh, this is bull. Just as the summer starts, they close off one of the best parts of the entire bike track in the Don Valley. Higher section. Yeah, no, that's shut off too. Well, that's annoying. Anyways, back under the bridge. Here we go. And this is fully wide also, so this is the most you'll ever see. This is my arm fully extended. And now we zoom in. You can see the stabilization on this isn't too bad, is it? Considering how shaky my hands actually are. Yeah, rock on, we're about to go down a hill. All right. Not only can you use the internal mics of the ZV-1 II, it also has the ever-faithful 3.5mm mic jack. And finally, if you want a direct connection with no wires, you can attach one of Sony's digital shotgun mics that connect right into the Hot Shoes electronics. I gotta say though, the sound that comes out of the internal mics is really impressive. The Dead Cat for sure helps a lot with that outside, and I'm sure in loud, hectic environments, the results would be different. But from my time with this camera, I have no complaints, other than for some reason there's no auto level setting for audio. So after a little bit of a bike ride, I am now at a conservatory, greenhouse, public, awesome space. It's called Allen Gardens. And yeah, I'm indoors now. It's pretty quiet. I am again using the omnidirectional setting on the microphone. I am recording now in full auto, so the camera is doing whatever it feels like. I've got eye tracking on and multimetering face priority, so it should expose to my face properly usually. If you're in seriously contrasty scenes, then it doesn't work as well, but like when I was on the bike, it didn't quite seem to work, but now that everything's a little bit more even in here, it seems to not be doing it so bad. Yeah, my face still looks properly exposed throughout. I've got a lot of zebras all over it, but you know, that's kind of how it goes when you're dealing with extremely bright skies and, you know, not so bright foregrounds. All right, and now we're gonna do a bit of an outdoor test with the DJI mic and the internal mics of the ZV-1 Mark II, and we'll see which one is a little bit better than the other, potentially. So, obviously I've got no windsock on here, so I should probably make it equal and have no windsock on the camera. So yeah, this is what the ZV-1 Mark II sounds like uncovered. And now we're switching over to the DJI mic right here. So this is what it sounds like. I'm recording to its internal microphone. So do you notice any major differences? Okay, So overall, I'm pretty impressed with this little camera. However, it does have a few strange and disappointing design choices that I'd like to address. Firstly, it's often difficult to see images on the screen outdoors due to sun and the screen only being 3 inches wide. I'd say this is an issue with a lot of cameras that don't have viewfinders, so this problem isn't totally unique to this camera, but still. I just think that if a camera isn't going to have a viewfinder, the screen on the back has to be really, really bright. Secondly, the battery life and charging situation out of the box isn't the best. Maybe it was because I received a non-release version, but it didn't even come with a USB-C cable. Not the biggest deal if you own a few USB-C cables already, but still, it's annoying not to get charging peripherals. This is sort of a double-edged sword, however. The convenience of being able to charge the battery via USB-C is great if you never need more than one battery. Like a phone, you can get a whole day's use out of it depending on how you use it. On the other hand, the battery only charges when the camera is off. You can trickle charge the battery, so this will keep you running a lot longer for things like live streaming, but unfortunately, no, you can't run the camera off of just USB power. You do have to have the battery with a slight amount of power in it for it to function. And because of this, I would highly recommend buying a second battery and a charger if you got this camera, as the batteries are small and the camera, in my opinion, is quite hungry. Hopefully, Sony releases a bundle with a charger and a second battery, but we'll see. Finally, my last major issue with the camera is the placement of some of the buttons. The placement of the record and shutter button should either swap places or be moved further apart. For my size of hand, it felt awkward and I often mistook which one I was going for. Maybe if your hands are a little bit smaller than mine, it'd be a bit more intuitive. Also, having another FN button on the front next to the lens would have been a great addition since you don't have the lens removal button on there. I'm not sure if they just didn't have enough space, but there's an idea for the next version. Alright, so what's the verdict? Is this camera worth buying over just using your phone? Well, I really can't answer that for you, but the ZV-1 Mark II is something I'm into. In my opinion, even with the downsides I've mentioned, the ZV-1 Mark II is a way better experience than using my phone for photo and video. It's not even comparable. I like it so much more than using my cell phone. To me, this is a solid in-between for someone who wants nice photos and videos easily, and an enthusiast who wants more control but doesn't want the hassle of switching lenses or lugging around extra gear. Like, it literally fits in my pocket. It's just as easy to carry around as a cell phone as well. So for me, yeah, it's a winner. Well, that's all I have to say about the Sony ZV-1 Mark II today. To see all the specs and for all other Sony products we offer, head to Vistek.ca. Thanks for watching. Bye. Thanks to Sony and Nanlite for supplying the Vistek YouTube channel with cameras and lights.